Okay, Mark, I think that's fine now.
So I might need someone's help because the welcome document has just disappeared. So I'm struggling to find it. So I'm going to try and do a number of things at once. Janet, I don't know if you will be able to
I can
uh,
do the
just that. I can do the
I
reading.
can do
I can do the reading, and
I will do those moments of welcome.
no, I can
And
say hello
then
to everybody. So if you get ready to do the prayers, and I'll do the reading.
I will.
Okay. So welcome everybody. It's really nice to see you all here today. I'm very much looking forward to our talk today from Sam Ewell, who is going to speak to us on seeing the oblate path through the eyes of a gardener. As many of you know, I am a gardener, but I'm actually presently hiding from my garden. This would not be my normal backdrop. It's very, very hot in London at the minute. So here I am in a very cool front room. So wherever you are in the world, whatever state your spiritual or internal or external garden is, you are very welcome today. So Janet is going to lead us in our opening prayers, and I will interject with the reading.
Thank you. And I'm glad to see that Sam has just arrived as well, so all is well. So let us settle into this time of meditation, this time of being together. Always a precious time, community time, a time of connection. O God, come to our assistance.
O Lord, make haste to help us.
Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. So, Mark, if you have the reading.
So many of you will have received the normal email, and Sam has chosen a reading from John chapter 15, but I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to read a section of it today. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes to make it bear fruit. You have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me.
Heavenly Father, open our hearts to the silent presence of the Spirit of your Son. Lead us into that mysterious silence where your love is revealed to all who call. Maranatha, come, Lord Jesus.
So I'm just was checking a message from the maestro Janet, reminding me to welcome Mary as she recovers from her knee operation. She's a feisty northern woman, and here she is, not long after her surgery, helping with the technology. So welcome, Mary. And welcome, Sam. It's very good that you are here today, and I know that Janet is going to enter into some dialogue with you. I have to say that your biography is fascinating. American, um, Brazilian, I think it was, if I'm looking correctly, and British geographical connections. Also, you've got training in both biology and theology and completed a PhD in Birmingham. You've been involved in neighborhood scale community development, working and tending gardens, and you are presently the chaplaincy coordinator at Aston University. So lots of hats there that you're wearing. So you are welcome, and we look forward to hearing you speak to us today.
Thank you.
So I think I'm going to begin, Sam, is that correct? To just begin with some questions. And we've also tested a little bit of the technology because having a dual visual is also been a first for us, amongst other things. So what Sam has asked me to do is just to prompt him with some questions. But I have a sense that as we go on through this short time together, that this flow of his experience as a gardener and as an oblate will just become very natural. But he's chosen these main headings, and I think we can see the icon. Could Mary, or I think Mary, can you, well, I can move it across in my screen. All of you can move the icon that you've been given. You can move it across your screen with the cursor and make it a little bigger. Because those are the four headings that Sam is going to be talking us through. So you've chosen this, seeing the oblate path through the eyes of a gardener. And of course, you are a gardener, have been a gardener, and some wonderful stories that you've shared with me. So perhaps you'd like to say a little bit more, Sam, as an introduction about how you turned towards being a gardener, towards being on the oblate path. Tell us a little bit more.
Thank you, Janet, and it's so good to be here. I would say I'm an aspiring gardener, in the same sense that I'm an aspiring oblate. And my entry point into gardening actually happening through composting. That was my entry point. So I thought I would just begin with a little show and tell, and to tell you a story that was a turning point for me. Flashback, 2007, living in Brazil, and I go to visit a man named Claudio, who would become my big brother figure. He's 10 years older than me, very much the elder brother I never had. We're at his house in Curitiba, Brazil, fifth floor of a tower block, and he keeps going out to his balcony on his tower block. And it was teeming with life, not unlike Mark when he shows us his plants in the background. But he had this oasis, this vertical garden on the fifth floor of a tower block. And he kept going to the corner and taking things from his kitchen. And he had in the corner a wormery where he was composting his coffee grounds, his tea bags, his food scraps, which we all have. And I just remember being intrigued because, again, my first degree was in biology, and I was thinking about the how and carbon and nitrogen and all these things. And he stopped me. He goes, Sam, how is easy. You can go on YouTube and there are hundreds of videos. The real question is, why would we do this? I said, oh. And he picked up a banana peel. Can you see my banana peel? This is my prop. He picked up a banana peel like this and said, Sam, in our tradition, in the beginning, God created and said it was good. If God created and said it was good, who authorized us to call it rubbish, to call it lishu? Who said it was rubbish? And then he put his banana peel down. So Janet, that was the coin drop moment for me. That was the before and after. And yes, 4 years of biology, 6 years of theology. That's 10 years of book knowledge that you would think might have led to an active practice of ecological care. But I can tell you, before I met Claudiu, I didn't have an active practice of ecological care. But that was the moment. It was as if in this moment of conversion, I saw the whole world in this banana peel. Care for this banana peel as you would care for the whole world. And that led me on a journey that I'm still on, very much still on, of trying to get back, being turned back towards creation and seeing it not only composting as a biological process and pattern, but as a way that God works, as a pattern of divine action, that God doesn't waste anything either.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I have to say that Sam and I have not rehearsed this, and so I'm enjoying this as much as everybody else. But I have got my questions, and that sense of conversion through a banana peel that must be a unique sense of conversion, and also coming to gardening in that from composting. That's something very foundational, isn't it?
That's right.
And I am your mentor. I was your mentor during the Oblate Path, and that was a wonderful experience. But maybe you can, talk about this before and after moment that you had, and clearly it wasn't just one turning point, but it was multiple turning points for you.
100%, both in the gardening sense, and I'm looking at the image here of returning at the bottom. So I'm starting with that returning and playing with it has a double meaning for me and for all of us. There's the returning in the literal sense of composting as returning organic material to the soil, as you do as a gardener, and how that journey, the banana peel led me on that journey. But also there's that sense of returning as conversion, that Benedictine precept that we all hold dear. And yes, both in gardening and in the Oblate Path, there have been multiple turning points. I'm always struck, Jenna, and I think I've mentioned this to you. There's a Brazilian phrase, Deus escreve certo por linhas tortas. I can put it in the chat later, but loosely translated is God writes straight with crooked lines. I think it might have even been St. Teresa of Avila, but I heard it first in Brazil. God writes straight with crooked lines. And there's a sense in which my Oblate Path, and you know this very well, that it wasn't a straight line. It felt like there were many twists and turns, but at the same time, there were multiple turning points. I'll just mention two briefly. I mean, one was, it's the reason I chose the text, the John 15. Not only is it a horticultural metaphor that I hold dear as a gardener, and it's one of my go-to gospels, but we were at an oblate gathering where we were all there. I think it was Jude led us in Alexio, or it might have been you, but the point, that was a coin drop moment when I was holding the question, I'm already baptized, I already follow Jesus. Oblate Path, yes. What am I saying yes to that I haven't already said yes to in baptism? I think and the image came to me as we were in our Lexio. You're called to abide in the vine, in Jesus. Jesus is the vine. The rule is not the vine. The rule is the trellis that supports the vine. It's all the structure that supports that being rooted in the person of Jesus and all that that makes possible. But if I could just also, there was also a turning point. I don't know that it's the closest thing that I've had to a rock bottom moment of it being, you know, in addiction and recovery communities, they talk about the rock bottom moment. Interestingly, Janet, it was the same year, 2022, when I had rekindled my journey as a novice, that there was a moment of working in the neighborhood as a community development worker. I had a full-time job in the neighborhood. I thought it was the perfect job. I'm getting paid to do all the things that I love with the people I love in the neighborhood. And within a year, the river had overflowed its banks. There were no boundaries. The work life, it was all, it was just too much. We were holding a neighborhood festival, and I was walking 200 meters from my house to this festival. And I just took a turn and I went to Tim and Tammy's house and I knocked the door and they said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Can I come in?" And I just said, and I started to cry and I said, "I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of being tired." And that was the moment. Both the John 15 passage was what held me and the rule as this positive turning point. Yes, the oblate path is like the trellis. But also, I needed a trellis and I needed meditation, like I needed to learn how to breathe. I needed to stop being tired and learn what's mine to hold and what's mine not to hold. So I would say that was a big part of the returning.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's wonderful to hear that truly authentic voice from you, Sam. And I think the next heading that you're in, that lovely image that you've got there, is the planting and the cycle.
Yes.
When you heard that Lectio, I think it was Jude probably, who may be here today, and it was in Carol Dixon's garden. A beautiful garden that she tends with her husband Tom. So wonderful planting places and moments. But you shared with me, you know, after returning effectively to the soil, to the very foundation of your being, and where you were at that time. Perhaps you could say a little bit more about the significance of the handling of the plants and how that experience has shaped your own planting, which I think is a great word to describe the journey that you've been on, Sam.
Yes. So if we turn to planting, and I'll just say a little bit about what I've done. So before I became a chaplain in January, well, I'd been a volunteer chaplain before, but my primary role, I worked freelance. I worked different gigs. I was 2 days a week as my job title, pretty swish job title. I was a green connector. So if you're wondering what a green connector is, if a community organizer and a gardener had a baby, it would be a green connector. It's a hybrid. So we worked in the neighborhood to connect residents, the gifts, passion, skills of neighbors. We brought them together. So it's about connecting residents around caring for green spaces. And during COVID, a movement of these green spaces began in Birmingham. It may even be beyond Birmingham, but we call them mother gardens. You've probably heard of community gardens, but you probably wouldn't call your back garden a community garden. You might, but we call them mother gardens because they're designed to spread. They're designed to give birth to other gardens, which is a pattern in the garden. And I remember one day we were on St. Vincent Street. We had a mother garden outside of a primary school. And there were some newcomers that day. And it happened to be about this time of year, maybe a couple of weeks earlier. And Mariana, an Italian neighbor, she was tending the strawberries, which we're sending their runners after they fruit. You know, they send a runner plant, which becomes the new plant. And you can see it like an umbilical cord. And she explained, she said, the mother garden, it's like the strawberry. The mother plant is sending a runner, and we tend that little plant. And then when it's ready and established and has roots, we cut that cord and it spreads. So the garden is meant to be, the strawberry became kind of our demonstration of how the garden is designed to spread. It's designed to be shared and given away, which is also like meditation in a way.
Great image.
Mhm.
The strawberry plant, we've got wild strawberries in our garden, and yes, they definitely spread. They
Right?
spread everywhere. And I think that's a wonderful image about the growth and spread of community. And interestingly, I was talking to somebody recently who thought Benedict's Well was only for oblates, and of course it's not. It's for all. And maybe you could say something a little bit about, you know, the sowing, planting, spreading
Yes.
at work as an oblate.
Yes. So I think the first thing that comes to mind under planting and that image of sowing, spreading, is all the seeds. I've just taken stock of all the seeds that have been sown into my life, and particularly through WCCM. I mean, the teaching of John Main and Father Lawrence, the 3 S's: silence, stillness, simplicity, the reception of Cassian, you know, that reading, that imagination, the contemplative reading of the Rule, the Christian life. Those are all seeds that have been sown into my life. But I'm also thinking, I was introduced to WCCM and meditation through Sister Anna O'Connor, who to this day hosts a meditation group here in Birmingham. But I'm also thinking of Jim Green, who was my first mentor, going all the way back to late 2011, 2012, and you, Janet, and the seeds of wisdom, and just encouraging me to stay with those seeds, to trust that they're going to grow. But there's one other thing that I wanted to mention that is about, I just wanted to share about how the oblate path and the seeds I've been giving have shaped my imagination beyond gardening. It's when I started this job, I was invited to apply for this job as a chaplaincy coordinator in a multi-faith chaplaincy. And I remember going into the interview was in December of last year. And I actually, this is my next show and tell prop, but I went in, but before I just had a conversation with a close friend named Dugald Hine. And on a Zoom call like this, he raised a question to us. He said, if you knew that you only had a short while to live, what would you want to share? And then he said, really what I'm asking is, what seeds are you carrying in your life that you want to share, to sow on? And I went in to the interview that I had in December with my next prop. This is a sunflower seed head. It's a little bit sad now. It's quite dried because it was saved from last year. But I actually took this into my interview and I retold this story. And I said, I'm a Benedictine oblate. And I said, I'm influenced Saint Benedict. And he says in his prologue that we're called to listen with the ear of the heart. And in that interview, they asked that question, what would you do in the first 100 days? You know, very broad. And I said, I would listen with the ear of my heart. I would listen to the people who are already here, the chaplains, to the students, to the other staff. But I also knew that I couldn't just say, I'm going to listen for 100 days. I had to promise something else. So I shared 2 seeds that are related to the Benedictine Oblate path for me. I said, I've received a practice of meditation in the Christian tradition of pure prayer. And I said, I would listen to what other seeds people would like to sow. But there are 2 that I want to sow in particular. One is meditation. And I held up the little sunflower seed. And I said, and the other is I would love for us to have a garden right outside the chaplaincy that we can tend together. That would be our place that we tend as both a practical thing, but also as a metaphor for tending this whole garden that is Aston. So that was my way. They said yes, obviously. So something landed. We have a garden. We've started a garden. And in September, when we begin the new academic year, we will begin a meditation group. So I just wanted to share that's what Ora et Labora, or prayer and work, are beginning to look like in our multi-faith context.
I'm really enjoying this, Sam. I must remember I need to prompt you with some more questions, and I'm also going to keep you to time. So
It's okay.
two hats.
Mm-hmm.
This next section is about tending,
Yes.
and I am so aware of how much tending you needed in that time of moving from long-term novitiate
Mm.
to that step towards full oblation, and you've used that reading today at John 15, which happens to be one of my most favourite chapters, because it uses the word abide
Yes.
rather than dwell
Mm.
in the more modern versions, and you've chosen abiding. And in many ways, that's about tending as well. So what for you is the work of tending as you have taken that full oblation last year? That tending for you, what comes up?
Yes. So and also just to stick to time, I think I'll just speak about both of the questions that I put under this one, Janet. Full disclosure, I think if I would say there were too many seeds in my garden and too many weeds, so it was oversown and overgrown, if I'm fully honest. And I part of that work as a green connector meant that between 2020 and 2024, there were about 5 mother gardens that I was involved in either starting or supporting. And anyone who started a garden will know it's easy to start. The real challenge is to keep, it's to tend a garden over time. So I think part of that tending, Janet, is just recognizing that any Enneagram 7 enthusiasm and sense of joy and willingness to start that comes natural for me, that needed to be tempered. It's not about being less enthusiastic, but it's just about receiving the wisdom of what's now and what's later, what's mine to tend, what's not to tend. And also language that really helped me. Father Lawrence wrote a document at COP26 about inner ecology, outer ecology. So in terms of my outer ecology, it meant stop neglecting your own garden, literally your back garden. I was spending too much time. The energy was too dispersed. So I'm happy to report Rosalie and I, our Saturday routine and evenings in this time of year, we tend our garden together, which we weren't doing when I was a professional gardener. So there's that outer ecology, but also the inner ecology of just tending your heart and staying with those seeds and staying put with them. I'll just mention one quick story, Janet, because as we all know, we're on this call, we're always beginners, and it's not like becoming an oblate was a magic wand that sorted everything, but it did give me the trellis. It did give me the structure. And I just remember, so I became an oblate at Turvey in October of 2023. But I didn't magically just have all the wisdom and everything sorted. There was still work to do. And in November of 2023, I was on a call. It was with a friend. It was something like life coaching. It was prepaid through my work. And I was sitting with my friend, Joe Bagby. And she said, Sam, what are your thoughts and what would you like to think about? And I said to her, Joe, after kind of skimming on the surface, I said, you're a musician. Now I'm going to mix a metaphor. I said, Joe, you're a musician. If I were to imagine my life as a piece of sheet music, there's the notes you play, but they're the rest notes where you pause. I said, if I'm honest, there are just too many notes. And she sat with it. And again, it gets back to that I'm tired of being tired pattern. And she said to me, Sam, she didn't say, you should do this, you could do this, you have to do this. She just said, what if you knew that you didn't have to generate all the notes? What if you knew? And I spent 30 minutes just smiling, because I knew the answer was in the question. So that answer that the oblate path has given me is, I don't have to make it up. I don't have to keep trying to have more and more seeds. I can just turn that enthusiasm to the seeds I've been giving and trust that that garden will grow, and that there'll be things that I can share and receive in that garden.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. We just have a few minutes left, Sam, and so I'm going to just bring us to that last part of the journey, the harvesting. And I have to say that I'm hearing it in you, the harvesting, and that's a wonderful thing to hear. And perhaps you would like to just share a little bit about your own harvesting and some of the realities that we have to face when we are coming to that time of harvesting our own authenticity, our own life. Perhaps you can talk about that pattern of harvesting for yourself, and then we will hand back to Mark.
Yeah. So at Mother Gardens, when we have the sessions, where we actually have the work sessions, we call that room to grow. And we noticed over time that there were 3 harvests, not one. There's the obvious harvest of the plants or the produce, what we're harvesting, like you see on the image here. But people would say all the time, but I'm growing friendships, I'm growing connections. So there's this social function. And just to go back to the plants, the 3 harvests, we're growing plants, we're growing connection, and we're growing imagination. That was the 3rd one. Again, to go back to the sunflower, when you plant one seed and a sunflower seed head gives you hundredfold, which has an echo of the gospel, that's incredible fruitfulness that shapes our imagination. It's easier to be generous when you spend time with sunflowers. It's easy to be generous. You want to share abundance when you observe strawberries send the runner, and not to hoard them, but to give them away, because actually you have to give them away. You have too many. So these 3 harvests of growing plants, growing connection, and growing imagination also transposed to the oblate life. We talk on the oblate path about the fruits and the benefits of meditation. That fruit, the fruits of the spirit, joy, and all of those fruits. But there's also a knock-on effect of, meditation builds community. It creates community, the conditions, just like a garden. And with imagination, I love that line. I first heard it from Father Lawrence when he says, meditation, it's not what you think. So it's about having your imagination renewed. And I would say gardening, it's not what you think. I'm always, both in gardening and on the oblate path, it's always more than what you're doing. There's the practice, but there's the overflow. You're growing the fruit, you're growing connection, community, and you're having your mind renewed. And I think I'll just have to end with that. Yes, it's to get it back to the prologue, to have overflowing hearts, expanding hearts. I think that's where I am on the path that can hold sorrow, like losing a sister. My sister passed in Jan. And there was, and I said to you, a friend asked me, Sam, how is your heart? And I said, it's larger than I ever imagined it could be. For that sorrow, but also the joy of being with Liz and commending her to God and staying put, that stability through that relationship, and just suddenly realizing, Saint Benedict, thank you for the wisdom that joy and sorrow can go together, and that our hearts can be larger than we ever imagined they would be.
Well, Sam, Sam gave me a little sense of what he would be sharing, and he shared much more. And I have a feeling that we will be asking him to come back, but I'll hand back to Mark. And just from my point of view, thank you, Sam, for asking me to do the prompts,
Thank you,
but I genuinely was not needed. So over to you, Mark.
So Sam, I want to just echo Janet's thanks to you for your authenticity, for the richness of this talk. I'm left with that image of the trellis, of the rule, and also changing that line from Teresa, not that God writes, but God grows in straight lines, but with curviness.
Yes.
Seeing you wrapping around that trellis in your richness, and also wondering what my wrapping around my own trellis looks like, and I'm sure that's the same for other people. But there's so much to say and so little time. So I'll finish again with thanks. And yeah, Janet and I are always looking for more speakers and return speakers, and we would very happily welcome you back. So we finish now with our closing prayer. May the divine assistance be always with us and with our absent brothers and sisters. Amen.
And thank you, Sam and Janet. That was a wonderful way of doing it, and I really enjoyed it. And I loved the gardening bit. It's given me a new outlook on my spiritual life. So thank you both very much indeed. It was wonderful. And we are a little bit over time, so I will very quickly tell you what's coming next week. And we have Father Robin Burgess talking to us about Abbot John Chapman, contemplative pioneer. And Father Robin is a married Catholic priest, formerly an Anglican, of the Diocese of Westminster. He has much experience of spiritual direction, leading retreats, and was the director of the Centre for Spirituality at Westminster Cathedral. And for about 20 years, he's been involved with the practice and teaching of meditation and the work of WCCM. So something very different next week, but something to look forward to. So in the meantime, I wish you all a very good week and look forward to seeing you back at the well next week. Take care and God bless.
Thank you all. Thank you, Janet.
Bye. Thank you, Sam.